as the tribute. Now, let us try to understand what is going on first. As we know, planet Earth has lost its ability to produce resources. Now, the thing is that extraterrestrial beings, we've seek an extraterrestrial being, and they tell us that okay, we can submit a, we can ask, we can get a, sorry, we can send a tribute for a Hunger Games like game, where if we participate, we get a year's worth of basic supplements, while if we win, we get 5 years worth of supplements. Now, before we get further into the arguments, let's first clarify a couple of things. The inhabitants of Earth that cannot be sustained anymore is essentially all creatures of planet Earth that has existed pre-apocalypse. Senior citizens are people who are old and significantly over the age of retirement. And as we'll see soon in our mechanism, we will have a select set of rules for the senior citizens that we'll be sending. And third world country, as a third world country, we still use a term that comes from pre-apocalyptic economic disparity, because this economic disparity still exists. If we think about it, the first world country has a much higher economic disparity, has a much bigger resource disparity as compared to the third world country. And each year they send their tributes. The first world country gains much more, or even in the worst case scenario, the same as a third world country does. And so this economic disparity still continues to exist. What it means to win the game is by simply killing everyone else. Now, let us get into the mechanism. Now, to select a senior citizen, what we'll do is we will first choose people who are significantly over the age of retirement, by at the very least 15 years, where where in this case we will prioritize those who have no commitment. And as if there are no longer senior citizens who fulfill that, we will uh, we will choose them on a voluntary basis, which means that these senior citizens choose to give their life on the line for these supplies. And if none volunteer, then we will simply just choose the oldest out of everyone. Now, as a third world country, we have a lack of resources, as we know, because again, pre-apocalyptic economic disparity, and so it is difficult. Let me declare what a best army man is. Best army man is essentially people who are trained in the thoroughly trained in the military and has proven to be the best in terms of physique, right? And so the lack of resources in third world countries is that it is difficult to train the best army men as opposed to the best army men of the first world countries. And that is our first point that we're going to be displaying about the third world countries versus the first world countries in this tribute game. Even if we send our best, we have no guarantee of winning, because once again, we are going up against the first world countries' best men, and we are going up against people in the first world who have much better resources, who have much better resource allocation, where they are much more thoroughly trained with essentially better resources such as technology. So as a result, we have, as a third world country, less trained army men compared to first world countries. And why do we say that we should keep our best army men? Because we want to keep them for the purposes of defenses. Ladies and gentlemen, let me remind you that uh, even though we still have this tribute game, it does not stop other world countries or even extraterrestrial beings from invading us. And so as a result, we still have to put up a better defense as a defense mechanism against these potential attacks that might happen. Because if we end up sending up our best men, we might end if we win, we get 5 years of basic supplements, which makes us much more susceptible to attacks, because we represent a much better, a potential target towards these countries, as I will explain much further, or my deputy prime minister will explain much further. And once again, when we keep these best army men for defense, what happens is once again, we have a better defense against potential attacks from other countries as well as extraterrestrial beings. As well, one thing to note is that once again, as I've said before, resources that we spend to train army men cost too much, because once again, it is a compared to first world countries, it is a waste of resources, because we have vastly different levels of technology that we're holding. And one more thing is that the supplies that we're getting is only bare necessities, only enough for us to survive, only for us to sustain ourselves, which is food, basic food and basic water. Having this advantage of 5 years does not necessarily change anything. Only the duration of which we get to keep our, only the duration of which we get to sustain ourselves, which is 5 years. And let us now consider as well the case that if we win, with these best army men, which mind you, when we send our best army men, we get a much better probability of winning, which is what we acknowledge. But if we win, the international relations between other countries and us is will get essentially messed up. It is it is in our best interest as a third world country to lay low and be consistent, because once again, when we mess up the international relations, if we end up winning, the international relations get messed up because we become a much more susceptible target to other countries when their first world sorry when their initial supply ends. They would instead look to us as an easier target than for supplies if we win, rather than just joining the tribute, because joining the tribute is not necessary. Now, we other people now, let us look at a cooperative. If the opposition side sends good men, we will lose strength skills, because even if they come out alive, they will still end up injured. And a 5 year supplies of basic necessities is what we will gain. There's no direct leg up, and once again, an international relations crisis will occur. But if we send our old men, we get a yearly supply. But most importantly, we get a yearly supply without losing any skill and any important workforces. And our best men are still able to work in defending the country, as well as work with and for any work that involves massive labor. The point about international relations being messed up and other points will be explained by my deputy prime minister. And with that, I rest my case.
Cool. Thank you, First Prop, for what was a really fun speech. Inviting LO. Here.
Hi, am I audible?
Yeah, great.
Right, so before I start, POIs, you can like just unmute your mic, and that's about it, I guess. So starting in three, two, one. Right. So a few rebuttals before I move on to my structural part of the case. So the side government's idea of, like policy for going forward as a third world country is to send people who are not equipped to fight, is to send people even in their mechanism with no training into a basically feeding frenzy of human beings coming together and whatnot, right? Why? Because they believe that one of their core reasons is to lay low, because if whatever the possibilities of winning the games might be, even if it's like down to a decimal, it has possibility for wars breaking out between first world countries and third world countries, and countries coming to our country and taking away our resources and whatnot, right? We believe these are all based on a very big hyperbole with no impact and no explanation. Why is that? Firstly, we believe that wars won't break down because, understandably, let's say in this competition, like the opposition mentioned, the first world countries are supposed to send better people, right? They have better technology, better funds, and they're supposed to send better people, right? So in that instance, they are supposed to have comparatively more resources than that normal third world countries do. And as mentioned in the info slide, you get resources of like entire year for sending a tribute and whatnot, right? So the possibility of first world countries attacking third world countries for like resources of 5 years is very low, because first world countries, I don't think they don't have any urgency for those resources as like third world countries do, right? But even if in the instance they do have those urgency, I don't think war is going to break out, because apparently they have an extraterrestrial being having a more or less control over them. And even if a war does break out, I'm pretty sure the extraterrestrial being will apparently intervene and will apparently destroy, worst case scenario, destroy human beings and humankind as we know it and whatnot, right? So the entire opposition bench's case of like moving forward is to like give all the resources on to um, old men, with all due respect, who apparently have no training, who apparently have no prior experience in combat and nothing, because apparently they're too afraid to, give their army men, because apparently they are, war might break out and whatnot, right? So, a couple of things that the side opposition needs to prove and come up with better arguments in regards. Firstly, they need to show to us that the chances of them surviving when they send older men to the games are much more in regards of their economical situation is more, right, than they send army men. And they also have to show to us that why sending army men is in general a bad decision in general, right? Firstly, understand that we believe that everyone's life is equal, right? Everyone has the right to live, whether you're someone who contributes to the society, as mentioned by typical people or whatnot, right? But understandably, we also believe that army men or military personnel are people that are trained to fight, are people that are trained to, for combat in very harsh situations or in wars and whatnot, right? They're basically trained to give their lives for the people of a country, for the cause of a country and whatnot, right? They're trained to adjust in harsh conditions, and they're trained for that if any time war breaks out in general, they should be called upon and what, right? So in a basic sense, in a very fundamental manner, anyone with a proper understanding and reasoning would send them to the games, right? Because even if let's say that even if they say, let's say he's up against superhumans that are coming from first world countries, the chances of him getting succeeded more is going to help, is much more than sending older men, right? But even if at the contrary that is as a third world country you send like every year army personnel, and that person eventually comes back, or doesn't come back in this case and becomes dead, you understandably send better messages as a country that you are not afraid to send your best men, that you're not afraid to fight for what is on the line and whatnot, right? On the flip side, whenever you send a person who's very old, where in the opposition mechanism, they're going to randomly pick someone with no commitment and whatnot, in the case that no one volunteers, you're basically saying to the entire country that we don't value your life, and you're just a guinea pig in a field of, like in the field of citizens and whatnot, right? So, what are the constructs that we are going to push from our side of the house? Firstly, I'm going to show you why it's practically a better decision in general to send army people, right? Understand that in this status quo stated by the infograph, understandably, the possibility of war, as I mentioned before, is very low among countries, right? And even if the conflict does arrive between countries, I'm pretty sure it's not going to be because of resources and whatnot, but because apparently the only people that have, that are very urgent for resources are third world countries, and third world countries, whenever they do go to war, it will obviously end up as a bad decision. So that's not going to happen in first. Secondly, we are going to show. I'm going to tell you how apparently that the more your chances of like leading a better life for the country is much more if you send army personnel, right? So the percentage of winning is very is much more when it's an army personnel, right? So let's say you send a military individual for the games, and he somehow wins, right? So you're basically you don't for basically for the next 5 years you don't necessarily have to like send another person because you have enough resources for 5 years and whatnot, right? So in one way you're saving 4 lives whenever you send an army personnel, but on the flip side, whenever you do send an old man with no prior training and with no prior experience and whatnot, you don't necessarily get that option to choose from. You don't necessarily have the scenario You don't necessarily have the scenario in general, right? What the chances of that man succeeding is not important, because apparently we need as much as scenarios as we want. Because as a third world country, our citizens are most likely suffering the most, and as a third world country, our urgency is of the most for the resource and whatnot, right? Because understandably, the 1 year research, I think it's the last minute. So understandably, the 1 year research that you do get will never be enough for like you're tackling all the problems you are facing as a third world country in general, right? So people are suffering either way. So when people are suffering, I think it's the best situation for like the people leading the third world country to send army personnel, because firstly they were made for this purpose, and secondly, like in a bloodbath between people, man, it's a much better scenario for like the countries in general to come out as victors or come out as better people to to win this game, right? So what have we shown to you from our side of the house? We showed you that it's practically a better decision for these countries to survive in the long run to send army personnel. Secondly, we've shown to you that this is something that works as a mechanism itself. Whenever you send army personnel, and people from the army will apparently uh, will not apparently stop coming into the army, or will not apparently the army won't get weak, because apparently you're sending one person each person or each year, and that doesn't make any significant difference to the power of your army. And this is why we're very proud to oppose. Thank you.
Thank you. First up, please be aware of the time, be aware of protected time, be aware of overtime. Inviting second prop to speak. Here, here.
Very sorry about just now. My timer was skewed, so like I did go at the last minute. I'm very sorry. I did not mean to do that. Also, is my audio okay?
Yeah, you're good.
All right, thank you. So give me a moment. I need to set up everything again. Yeah, okay, that's nice. Okay, so I would like to start my speech.
You're cutting off.
I heard that I was cutting off. Am I cutting off?
You cut off for like 2 seconds.
May I swap to my teammate's computer?
Yeah, I'm good.
Hi, um, is audio okay from this side?
Yeah, actually better.
Okay. Very, very sorry. Give me a moment. I will like to start my speech now. So first of all, I like to start off with a couple of rebuttals. First, that they claim that first world countries would not have the same urgency for supply as will third world countries, and so they wouldn't actually send their like best army men, and so there would be less competition. This is false because they still have the urgency for this big supply, because it is that the earth itself has lost the ability to create resources for everyone, so everyone is in fact actually like trying to get the same amount of resources. And so they've also claimed that the extraterrestrial being would intervene, which was something not involved in the motion. I would like to believe that it is, well, quite useless, but it's okay. Also, they've used the argument that everyone would choose to send the best army men, which is ad populum, I believe. And so we believe that this is a weak argument, as you are appealing to what you think the masses would be, when this is not exactly the case, as is the side government that we think it's better to send senior citizens as opposed to best army men. Oh, and sorry. And the other points, such as sending better messages that you're not afraid, that the thing that you don't value the life of old men. We believe that it is better to send old men who have like contributed all they can to the workforce. They've done all they can. They've used all their skills and are at the end of their life, and they are most likely volunteering due to the mechanism we proposed earlier, than to send like young men in their early 20s, early 30s, who still have a life to live, who still have all their skills that they can utilize. So we believe that in this we are better utilizing the inherent value of human life as time has passed. But it is okay. And we would like to restate that conflicts will happen regardless of resources, yes, but also like the fact that you have resources from winning, from this potential of winning, we don't believe that it necessarily brings benefits. Instead, it might paint a target on our back. Yes. And also, we'd like to point out all the arguments that side opposition has given, where, if you send an army man, it would somehow win, or you don't have to send anyone for 5 years. But okay, I'll go into this in my main points, but it's okay. So, okay, main points. Very sorry. So the thing is that we don't believe that first of all, we don't believe that this potential of winning is significant, and two, we don't believe that winning in itself is any better than not winning, right? And three, we'd like to point out the very nature of the difference between young army men and old and senior citizens, because one thing is that to be a senior citizen, there is no requirement. You just have to be old. But to be one of the best armymen, or to be a good armyman, you need to have a specific set of skills. You need to have gone through a specific kind of training. You need to be a specific kind of person. This in itself means that old people are akin to renewable resources, while good army men are limited. They're a very specified kind of people, and we believe that we can utilize their skills in something better than it is. Something better than just sending them off to potentially die, potentially get injured, and maybe win. Because we need to understand that we are a third world country. The materials, the resources, and the technology that would require to actually produce a good army man costs us a lot more than what a first world country would be. Yes, we are all fighting over the same amount of resources, the bare minimum, as the motion has said. We are only getting the bare minimum, guys. Even if we win 5 years straight of bare minimum resources, it's still 5 years straight of bare minimum resources. We are all just fighting over the same amount of resources, yes, but the leftover technology, the technology difference between first and third world countries are inherent, and they are still they're still present to this day. And why not that it would still be present in an apocalyptic world like this? Sorry. And yeah, so I like to expand on my prime minister's second point, I believe, is that if we win, this would lead to an IR collapse, which is international relation collapse. Because if we win, we have 5 years worth of resources. But okay, depending on how these resources are distributed, there may be difference, but then it's still the same. It's that we have 5 years worth of resources, and other countries see this. How would they see this? It's either that this outcome is publicized because the extraterrestrial is funny, or that because people have news sources, people can talk to each other, and nations do talk to each other, that we know. But this is not important. It is that the other countries would be aware of this, and this will paint a target on ourselves because they see that we have this excessive resources, and they believe that we are a weak country because we are still third world. And this puts us into a massive position of risk when other countries are no longer motivated to simply win the tournament, but they want to take resources from us, because it's always easier to put your whole country's resources into stealing it from one little country than to put all your hope on this one guy to be able to win this competition for you, for the entire nation, right? So we'll also like to we like to restate that our stance is that it is better for us to send old people, to send old senior citizens, to ensure a stable supply of food, of water, of resources yearly, than to risk losing these good army men. And also, then again, I would like to reiterate that we are a third world country. Yes, we might have a considerable population, but the skills that we need to be a good army man is very limited. It's very niche. We are working for our best interest of our country, and this best interest includes laying low, not attracting the attention of other countries to invade us because we have extra resources that they do not, and that they could not get. And also that we believe that these good army men, they have skills that we can utilize in other areas, such as in defense, in protection, in I'm very sorry, in manual labor and stuff like that, which is not something that old people, senior citizens necessarily can replace. Their prime time is over, right? Yes, there might be ethical issues, but who are you to argue ethics when we are still sending people to kill other people? And who are you to argue ethics when you are arguing to send good young men who are at the peak of their lives to go potentially hurt themselves or potentially lose their lives also? We believe that to send senior citizens to at the very least ensure a stable supply of resources is better than to risk losing our very important skilled individuals to just die for maybe no difference than if we did just send a senior citizen. Thank you very much.
Cool. Thank you, second prop. Inviting second prop.
Hello, am I audible?
Yep.
Okay, so starting in 3, 2, 1. Two things that are the major points from side government. One is that if you win the resources, you'll have an IR collapse, everyone start getting you, and war will break out. Point number two is if we send these people, suddenly our economy will collapse because they'll be much more useful in the economy. So, firstly, ire collapse and war breaking out. Why is this not likely to happen? Understand that the earth cannot produce resources to sustain people. Wars require a lot of resources. You need to move your tanks, you need to move your army vehicles, you need to do research, you need to do big trenches. It takes a lot of resources to do an attack. Take something like Russia trying to take over Ukraine. It took them so much resources and they're still stuck in like 2 or 3 of the outer provinces. What makes you think in a post-apocalyptic situation, countries would be risking things like that? They'll be more concerned about defense rather just be conservative and defensive, because taking an attack like that, especially when you have 1 year's worth of resources left, is not something any country would risk, because they know that in the case that it doesn't work out, because these countries are holed up and defended very well, that in the case that it doesn't work out, it's GG for your country. Your people are starving to death because you don't have the food. You used your resources on the attack and you lost it. So the chances of countries suddenly just saying you have 5 years of resources and they're like, yeah, everybody's going to attack him, let's go and attack him and then try it. I don't think that's going to happen, because these countries are very lacking in resources in the first place. And with bare minimum to sustain your army, your people as a whole, it's very unwise for any country to go out and attack another country. So the idea that ire relations and everything is going to break down the point in time you win 5 years of resources, that's a very problematic idea. But then again, even if we don't win, regardless of whether we don't win or not, some country is going to win. Do you think that every year some country is going to go to war over who won it? That's just like high school. Like someone has more stuff, let's just take everything from it. International politics is not like that. People, especially in post-apocalyptic situations. So I don't think the idea that war would be a constant thing is something that's valid, because countries don't have the resources to begin with to sustain their people. Forget wage a war against another country for their resources. So I think that idea collapses. But the second thing they talk to you about is old people have done all the things, they've used up, they've contributed as they can. They talk as if these people are dispensable. They don't have anything to contribute. The whole purpose of these people is that they are going to contribute to the country. They don't have a life of their own. They don't deserve to live since they've contributed. We think that's devaluating the human life. And I think it's much better if we choose an army officer, putting value on everybody's life. If we put the same value on everybody's life, why then is it better to choose an army officer? Two reasons why. One, it actually gives you an opportunity to win 5 years of resources, and that is a good thing, which I'll get to later. But secondly, what do army officers have in common? When they sign up, they tell you, I pledge my life to my country and I would die for it. That is something that every army officer has to do, which means they have pledged their life to die for their country. Now, does going into a tournament in order to win 5 years of resources sound like giving up their life for their country? Yeah, it does. So I think it qualifies then that these people have willingly surrendered or have expressed a will that they will do something like this and are willing to do something like this. So then these people who are trained, who have been drilled and done all they could to be an army officer, are more likely to do something better and are more likely to be willing to do these things because they signed up for it. And then they talk about how it would be better used if they were still in the army for defense, for manual labor and whatnot. It's one person. Over 100 years, that's 100 people. Over 100 years, how many army officers are you going to recruit? Probably another 100,000, probably another million. I think out of those 1 million, you'd find the similar capability of soldiers or even more capable soldiers all the time. So the idea that this is going to diminish the best army officers is a false idea, because every year people are enlisting in the army, which means every year you have a new set of people from which you can drill and find new army officers that can be the best. And even if we lose one of the top 100 officers, it's just one of the top 100 officers. There's still 99 other officers who are very capable and able to do their jobs. So I think the idea that you're going to lose out on a lot of resources just because you sent your best army officers is a bad idea. But let's then get to my substantive about why 5 years of resources is better. Two reasons. One, having 5 years of resources mean you can develop at a faster rate, which means you can use up those 5 years of resources in the next 2 years to sustain your people and do development that is more critically necessary in these developing and third world countries, which means over the next 2 or 3 years, you have a faster growth process, and which you can only achieve under our side, because the old man ain't winning anything, but our army officer maybe in 50 years might win once and get us 5 years of resources. So in that 2 years of time, you get more resources. But the other way that we can use these 5 years of resources is that we can use these 5 years resources over the next 5 years, which means over the next 5 years we don't have to send anyone to the competition, which means we're saving 5 lives. Does that sound like a good thing? Of course it does. We, instead of them, where they have to sacrifice a life every single year, we give ourselves an opportunity to win 5 years of resources and use it to develop our country, or we can use it in a way that 5 lives are saved, because for the next 5 years we don't have to send someone to win the competition. Which either alternative way the country decides to do this, it's benefit for the country. Even if you use it up in 2 years, that's still one more year in which you don't have to send someone to the tournament. That's one life saved. And I think since we do have a chance to have saved lives, our comparative is better. Even if it is a 1 in 50, 1 in 100 chance, it's still a better alternative compared to what they're proposing. So what have we shown you? We've shown you it's morally justified to send the army officer for what? If we value everybody's life equally and not just someone that their only use is to contribute to the country and make the country better, if we put a value on human life, then the army officer makes sense because they're fit, they have a chance of winning, but also because they signed up for this. They pledge to give their own life for their country. They pledge to do this, which means that they have a moral obligation that they chose that they have to fulfill. Secondly, we tell you that in the odd chance that we win, we'll have 5 years of resources that we can use in two ways, in which we speed up our development process, or we can use the conservative way where we use our resources over the next 5 years, next 4 years, and we don't have to send someone to that unethical tournament for 5 years. So ethically, we are better off because we have an opportunity of saving 5 lives. They never have that opportunity. We have an opportunity of winning 5 years of resources, which always sounds better compared to 1 year's resources, regardless of how you use it. So on resources are better under our side, and the country doesn't collapse. And the idea that IR will break down is also very false. So I think we take this debate side opposition. Proud to oppose.
Thank you, second op, for that speech, inviting third prop to continue their case.
Hello, am I audible?
Yep.
Okay, see how audible. Okay, so before that, I would like to say that my preference of UI is through vocal methods, as I won't be seeing the screen quite much. Therefore, I'll start my speech. I'll start. Wait. I'll start my speech in 3, 2, 1. Ladies and gentlemen, the side of the government today has been severely underestimating the surroundings that these people who are sent to these Hunger Games like games that will actually face. Because remember this, we are being sent as tributes to the aliens for their entertainment, for their purpose of entertainment to actually entertain them as they see us kill each other in these Hunger Games. And the thing is, we are being sent into a world, into a surrounding which we will never know. What if we were sent to like an extraterrestrial planet? What if we are sent to like fight in a large spaceship that these aliens inhabited? And these situations, these surroundings are actually completely alien to us. And the thing is, even the most trained people, the people who are mostly trained on Earth, will probably be surprised. Will probably be outsmarted by these surroundings because they are not prepared for it. They were never prepared for it because before this, they are prepared to actually defend their country. They're actually prepared to actually fight against humans. They're actually prepared to actually fight, prepare themselves against harsh earthly surroundings. But there is a countless possibilities when you're actually being sent into an alien environment, and therefore that's why I say that the possibilities of you winning, even if you send your best personnel, your best army men, would not actually increase that much, and therefore it is not worth it to send them just for a sliver amount of chance for you to actually win this Hunger Games like games. And then another thing that I would like to point out from the side of the government, which I assume is a fallacy, is that they say that the fact that we are only sending one person that year, and there's basically like 99, or there's basically like a huge amount of other same strength officers that are actually available to actually serve their country. Now the things I just say that now, as I've said just now, the possibility of us winning is still very low. You know, you're fighting against hundreds and hundreds of other countries, and you know the environment is alien. You're not guaranteed to actually be prepared to whatever your you're fighting for. And the thing is, if you don't win, which is a high possibility, you are sending more and more officers every year to get that 5 year of supplies reward. And this is not a guarantee that you can get 5 years. If you lose during that one, if you lose the Hunger Games during that one year by actually sacrificing one of your best officers, you're gonna send the next year. You're gonna send another best officer. Next year, you're gonna send another best officer, and in the end, you're gonna deplete yourself from the amount of reliable personnel that you have within your country. And this is something that we do not want in a third world country, because in a third world country, as I said just now, the resources, the allocations of resources that we need to regenerate these personnel is actually much, much harder to actually get as compared to a first world country, because the lack of advanced technology, the lack of training, and the lack of information in general when it comes to training these people. Um, and then another thing that I would like to point out from the side of the government is that they are reading our argument in an extreme way, where they think that we are assuming that the post-apocalyptic countries will attack our countries because we have these 5 years of resources, and the fact that they assume that we think that, oh, the every year the countries that won will actually be targeted by all the other countries. Here's the thing: we are talking about the possibilities of an international conflict. And as a third world country, you are being seen as a country that is easy to be colonized. You are being seen as a country that is easy to be attacked, because you're a third world country. You're weak. You don't have any much resources, personnel. You have a limited arsenal in your in your in your in your arsenal. So because of that, we are only talking about possibilities here, and the possibilities can arrive everywhere. And I agree with the side of government, as the side of government just said just now, that uh, these these international conflicts will happen not only because of resources but also other reasons. And that is exactly why we need these strong men in this country to actually protect this country themselves. And yes, they do pledge to actually protect the country, to actually serve their lives for the country, to actually sacrifice themselves for the country whenever needed. Therefore, it's more important for them to be at the country themselves to protect them if there are any possibilities um of an attack which will happen. And I'm sorry. And the thing is, it's more important for them to actually protect the citizens, to actually protect the property of their country themselves. And this is why I said that they are still fighting to protect for their country. They are still adhering to their pledge. Um, Another thing that I point out is that the side of the government has pointed out has accused us of not valuing older people that much, and basically saying that we are saying that the older people are dispensable. Uh, let me let me retake you to the mechanism that my prime minister has said, that my leader of the opposition has said. No, I'm sorry, that my leader of the opposition has said just now, that we are basically sending these elderly people who are basically significantly over the age of retirement, and that they have no more commitment besides taking care of themselves. And the thing is, it is like extremely assumptuous to think that they will actually be scared to serve themselves, to actually go into the Hungers, because the thing is, they know that they don't have much time left. And because of that, the chance of them to actually serve their country, to actually do sacrifice themselves in these Hunger Games for a noble cause, to make sure that their family, to make sure that their friends, to make sure that the society around them can actually get a sustainable amount of resources, the bare minimum of resources, is actually something that they will consider and they will actually potentially want. And therefore, it's basically like very, I would say that we have to consider the fact that whether these old people want or not, and there is going to be some of these elderly people that want, especially if they realize that they have not much time left and they want to do something for the country themselves. With that, I would like to point a counterfactual is that in our work, if we send the if we send our in our work as a third world country, if we send our senior citizens as a tribute, we will actually conserve some of our best men to serve our third world country themselves, to protect our country. And in their world, in the side of the government's world, where they will actually send their best army men to actually fight in these Hunger Games, they will actually send these army men for a sliver amount of potential to win. And even if they win, they will actually come back in a very, very injured manner. And and in a way that is actually dehumaniating because you are just being used as an entertainment for these aliens. Therefore, I rest my case. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, third prop, inviting third op. Here.
Great, thank you. Am I audible?
Yep, great.
All right. POI, just unmute and say, and my pronouns are she, her. Starting in, sorry, wait. Okay. Starting in 3, 2, 1. The argument of a possibility of an ire conflict and war breaking out coming from side government and again seems a little redundant. But even if we take them at our worst case scenario, where worst case or best case, let's say, where we send an army man and we win the war and get 5 years of 5 years of supply, it's one person being sent to the fight and not the entire military itself. So if you want to keep the military back in your country to defend them against other countries coming into your country, colonizing or whatever, the chances of the entire military defending against other countries and the chances of the military minus that one person who went to war defending against the other countries doesn't make that significant of a difference, because it's just one person being sent to war every time. So if your argument is that we need to keep these people back home to defend them from other countries, we don't see a significant difference in the chances. On the other hand, there's significant difference in chances of winning the war once you send army men into winning the fight in the alien planet or whatever. There's higher chances of them winning compared to senior citizens being winning. One other rebuttal is that they tell us about how the senior citizen would be more likely to go into the fight and into the game because they know they don't have much time left, which we don't think is a good enough assumption, because you're assuming that they're just gonna give up their life and die. But that's not what, even if we take you at your best case, where people in the aging population don't want to leave any farther because they've lived their entire life, people who would want to opt for like dying, sorry, people who would want to opt for like ending their lives would not be opting to go into a fight to end their lives. Like this is not a plan for euthanization for people who are voluntarily opting for euthanization, right? This is a fight. They have to go into the fighting arena or whatever and have to put up a fight. And even if they don't put up a fight, it means that they're going to be attacked by other people, which we don't think most of the aging population would be willing to voluntarily do so. On the other hand, we tell you that army men, the moment in time they sign into the military, this is the thing they pledge to do. They pledge to fight for their country, and when they put their life on the line for the country, they mean to say that they will be fighting other people, other countries, or other whatever attacks that may be coming in, which aligns with the reason for the fight in the post-apocalyptic world as well, right? And they also tell us about how the situation, like in case the situation is very alien and even the most trained ones will not be able to defend themselves, which means that it's going to be a gamble. Doesn't matter if we send our best army men or something else, right? Understand that they're kind of backstabbing themselves, because they first tell us about how the first world country soldiers are going to be better equipped because they have better training, because they have better resources and whatnot. So we always have a chance of losing compared to them. But understand that they have better resources, better training or whatever in terms of like wars on Earth, and not necessarily in terms of like whatever the fight would be. So if it is a gamble, we would rather send the ones who are most physically able and let them put up a fight, right? So that brings to the main clash of the debate, which is, would you rather send for a fight, or would you keep on sending people as a sacrifice? On our side of the house, we put up a fight in order to survive, whereas on the other hand, side government keeps on sending people as a sacrifice because they've already admitted to the fact that older people who are going to be sent are likely to not win the fight not win the game ultimately, right? So their arguments are that for as long as we have senior citizens, we would keep on sending them, and it's an unlimited supply. Understand that in third world countries, mostly the aging population is pretty low because lower life expectancy and whatnot. So I don't buy into their argument of having unlimited amount of old people. And whereas a good armament is also not unlimited, but we can have recruitment over the years, given that we have higher chances of winning, right? So even in our worst case scenario, where there's like very low chances of winning, we still do the right thing because we're putting our fight and letting people who have already signed up to fight for our country send to the game to win for their country. But even in their best case scenario, they admit that they are going to lose ultimately because they're sending the people who are the least physically able. And the strategy is to keep on sending people and stay on the low for as long as we don't run out of old people, which we don't think is morally right, or even has given or does give us more chances of surviving in the longer run. Which brings me to the second part of the debate, which in terms of like who proves to survive in the longer run. Their arguments against like not surviving in the longer run is the eye relations breaking down and wars breaking out and stuff like that, which we have already had arguments against from my previous speakers as well as rebuttals from me. They said that they're going to rather use the men for defense back home, back in Earth, but we tell you that that doesn't make a significant amount of difference. And they also have an argument about how they would stay back and use army men for manual labor. Given that there's not many resources for you to use, we don't know what kind of manual labor, what kind of prosperity you're seeing over years if you're like keeping on using your army men for rather those things than sending um, rather than sending them for a fight, because that's what they signed up for anyway. So that's what their arguments on surviving in the long run. But we tell you that we have a significant chances of winning in the game that's going to happen, because mostly if it's about physical fights, if it's about people fighting, we are sending the best able ones, so we have higher chances of winning. And even if it in the worst case scenario we don't win, we are doing the right thing because these people have already signed up to be in the army, which means that this aligns with the aim for them signing into army, which means they would keep on fighting to to protect the people of their country, which they're going to do. So even in our worst case scenario, we keep on trying unless we can ensure a maximum amount of resources for the people in the country, rather than keep on like in on side government, they're basically giving up for as long as they don't run out of old people. So that way, we're very proud to oppose. Thank you.
Cool. Thank you everyone for what was a very fun substantive clash between all speakers. Inviting the op reply here.
Hello, am I audible?
Yeah.
Right. So starting in 3, 2, 1. My God, my mouse is not working out finally. Right. So, good constructive part of the debate consisted of government building their case on a lot of assumptions. Right. They firstly assume that war is going to break out between countries because of resources, a depletion between uh their economies and whatnot. Then they come up to us and they give a mechanism about how apparently armies might get weak and you need your armies always and ready and whatnot, right? And finally, the value of life. Apparently, the value of an aging population or a person beyond the age of 50 and his substantive impact on the society and what it could do in the present context, right? So a few clarifications to end our side of the concept and why we win this debate. We've shown to you that the army doesn't get necessarily weak, right? We've shown to you that apparently if you the chances of you winning is slightly higher on our side of the house, and that is what we are fighting for in today's debate. And in the cases that we do win this debate, we can have special catered training programs for people to participate in these games, which will increase our chances of winning the games much more, even if like it's a landslide battle between first world countries because they have like huge technology, huge like armies and whatnot. So whatever. Right. Secondly, we've told you that we value the life of people. Right. When we say this, we will also say to you that we value the life of military personnel, because when you as an individual necessarily sign for the military voluntarily, you necessarily sign to give away your life in a way that's beneficial for the country. You necessarily agreeing to put a price on your life, which is apparently giving it for the country and whatnot, right? So that's why we've told you through our three speakers and upper bench of the upper bench that it's much better if we send these people instead of like the aging population, who the opposition thinks don't have any value, right? And secondly, we give this aging population, we believe that the aging population should be given the freedom of choice to do what they want with their life, right? They've told to us in their mechanism that they come up with a voluntary system, and in the events that no one volunteers, they're going to randomly pick someone, right? But understandably, these people are never never signed up for this, right? Imagine imagine like us being 50 and suddenly being asked to like give our lives uh for our country, even though we like gave our entire lives for our family, or contributed in other ways and what, right? It's unfair for them in the first place. And secondly, at the end of your living tenure in a post-apocalyptic world, I think that's a very sad way to like pass away and whatnot, and that is something that we should not give, right? So what have we shown to you from our side of the house? We've shown to you that even if the chances of us winning the war is very skeptical, but we think it's much more better if we send army personnels. We think that apparently our chances of saving four more people in the long run, which where we value each life separately, is much more on our side of the house. And we've shown to you that our chances of surviving as a third world country in a post-apocalyptic world, which is apparently led by an extraterrestrial being, is much more greater because apparently our policies are better, right? So we are very proud to oppose. Thank you and good luck in the Hunger Games.
Cool. Thank you, Up Reply. Inviting Prop Reply.
Hi, is the hi, is it audible and smooth?
Yeah.
Okay, nice. I'll be doing replies. So, my speech starts in three, two, one. So, first of all, I like to start off with all the clashes that not clashes. I like to start off with what we believe the opposition has failed to do. So, first of all, they did not provide a good justification for what we perceive as a waste of these very technical and important skills that the good army men do have. Yes, you send them into the funny little what's it, Hunger Games, but what else? So they come back injured, they come back potentially dead, they come back like harmed, and they do not actually in fact what like do anything much for the country. If anything, they might not win at all, and they would have basically the equal value as a senior citizen. It is okay. And also they've shown multiple times that they do not understand emotion. They do not understand that these 5 years of resources are just the bare necessities. It's not quite enough to be able to change much of your status quo. Your people might be able to continue living, but it's not that you would have any like important development or any big change, even if you do speed run the 5 years of resources. And next, that they do not understand that conflicts have potential to break out regardless of whether or not there is resource disparity, because countries are okay. People individually are smart, but people in groups are stupid. That is something that we know, and that is something that we want to take care of just in case it happens. And also, they did not understand the resource and technology disparity present in countries before this apocalyptic scenario has happened, and like between first and third world countries, that which I believe extensively discussed. And they also proposed a new mechanism in their replies, no, in their in their whip speech, that they were to train them, which we believe came really late, and so we did not understand. Anyways, the clashes, right? So first of all, how we disagreed on how we want to protect the best interests of the country and what they are. So they argue that, oh, there's a potential of winning. So how would you justify sending good men for this potential when we have a baseline, there's a set baseline of, if you do not win at all, it's okay, you will have 1 year. So we believe that we would rather take this route, and we believe that it is better for the stability of the country to lay low because of potential IR relations. But it is okay. But even if it does not exist, the stability is okay, because the worth of someone who has these technical skills of a army man is more important than like an old people. This leads into the ethics and morality that we disagreed over. So they were like, are old people dispensable to you? So we asked, what about the young people? And also, we like to point you to our mechanism that we proposed in our very, very first speech. That first, they would be significantly over the age of retirement, yes, but also two, that firstly, we'll ask for people who have no commitments, and secondly, we'll ask for them to be on a voluntary basis, first of all, if anything. And we need you to understand that freedom of choice also means that there will be people who choose to sacrifice themselves for the country, old people included, right? Because it's not that every single old person just wants to live forever. Some just do want to sacrifice themselves for the country. And thirdly, and lastly, and if anything else, we would justify sending the oldest person in our country. That is the mechanism we have proposed. This we believe settles the ethics discussion of this thing. And also, if anything, for the best interest of the country, we do believe that in this scenario, in this specific scenario proposed in this motion, we do not really care for these senior citizens, just for the best interest of everyone else in the country, right? So we also like to point to the fact that we are the difference between the nature of us being a third world country, that we would not have a significant pool of highly skilled individuals such as the army men, and that old people are old people. There are no like specific circumstances that you need to fulfill to be an old person. There will be continuous and renewable. That old people will keep being old. There will always be people who keep getting old, but it is not the case for army men, and this is why we justify sacrificing them instead of trying to potentially win. Thank you very much.
Thank you everyone for what was a fine and fun debate. Congratulations for making it this far, and good luck for breaks. You may now go away, and I can talk to my panelist.